G'day, Geoff Lewis here from Seriously Series, and once again we're out on another adventure, but we're doing it with a twist. This might actually be a first for YouTube, as we've got our good friends here, Mark and Nick from Sidetrack. How are we?
Hi mate.
Great that you're here.
Yep.
Better shake your hand to Mark. Anyway, we've got some new four-wheel drive vehicles and some new way of presenting some fantastic content your way. And we've got to get somewhere, don't we guys?
That's the plan.
It is. Will we get there or not?
Doesn't matter really. I mean,
we'll have fun, won't we?
That's right.
But you probably want to sit back, relax, grab yourself a brew or something slightly stronger. But most importantly, stay tuned. Otherwise, you're not going to find out. Ecosystem survives on like 300 mil during the year, which is nothing for us. It's all due to the clay. The three most useful spanners, 1/2 inch 7/16 and 9/8 9/16, have all went missing. So as many of you know who've been following the channel on YouTube, I have been having nothing but dramas with the HIF 44 SU carburetor. Anyway, it's a brand new carburetor. I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but what we've done on this trip is we've brought along the old faithful, the Zenith. So we were having problems with the air fuel mixture yesterday. It was just running way too rich. It seems to be it can't get enough air passing through the carburetor. No, but I think we've reached a point, or I've reached a point, where we're just going to cut our losses, chuck the Zenith on, and that should hopefully get us to Perth, and the Series 3 should run a little bit better. So I'm just going to take it off. Literally, there's just 2 studs or 2 nuts, and chuck it in the back. So get back to it. Got a nice day ahead, so we'll hit the trails. So we've pulled up for a little bit of a stop and doing a little bit of sightseeing. We're here at one of the many granite outcrops that occur along the side of the Holland Track. But this one here is really interesting, and I know I've talked about these outcrops in particular before in one of our Golden Quest episodes. This one's interesting because it's actually got a depression in it known as a namathole or a native well. As you can see, we've had a lot of rain over the few days leading up to this trip, and the depressions in the granite itself have filled up with water. Now, what's the difference? Well, this particular namathole, you can see where it's actually formed in the granite, and it's formed along a vein. The actual minerals within that vein are very reactive, and they've broken down over time, and this has helped to form the large hollow that we actually see in the rock here today. So it's pretty fascinating, and this particular well, you could say, would have played a vital role for those prospectors, early explorers travelling up into this part of the world. Anyway, we're going to have a little bit more of a look around here, grab a bit of lunch, fire up the landies and the patrol, and head a little bit further on down the track.
Deep one. So you may have noticed we've got two very different vehicles here on this adventure, and this actually goes back a little way, and it's great to have Mark and Nick here from Sidetrack, but they actually met Damon a few years ago. And how did that come about, Mark?
Yeah, not
You
by
had a Jeep,
not
didn't you?
by choice.
Yeah,
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 no,
yeah.
it was. It wasn't the finest hour of the Jeep's ownership. We were actually down in Tasmania, having a hell of a time, off-roading, adventuring. Jeep had some problems. Ended up taking it to get fixed. That was a timing chain. Ended up snapping. It stretched initially. I probably didn't do the smartest thing and kept driving it, so then it snapped. Luckily we were in Launceston at the time, so of all the rugged places in Tassie that it could have happened, it wasn't too bad being in Lonnie. We still had another week in Tasmania, so we kind of thought, rather than flying home and just cutting it short and ending it like that, I thought I'd jump on Marketplace and the car sales places and just see if there's something that tickles my interest that I could maybe go and look at. And not wanting to spend much, obviously. I'm on holiday and I've got a big repair bill with the Jeep coming, so ended up finding a Defender Ute. Called up this bloke named Damon. Went down there, had a look at it.
He's an okay bloke, isn't he?
Yeah,
not too bad.
Yeah,
It was pretty quick. It was pretty quick.
Out,
It was pretty quick to realise how good of a bloke he was. To be honest.
No, it took a bit of a gamble with it. Look, honestly, it was in pretty poor shape. The Ute
Had a lot of love, didn't it?
it did.
Yeah,
it had a few stories to tell, but which is kind of half the attraction with it. Like, it was a rickety old beast.
Yeah.
Ended up saying, stuff it.
Yeah.
Pulled the trigger, purchased it. Damon kind of knew the struggle that we're in, knew that we were going to attempt to tour Tasmania for another week and then drive it back to South Australia.
He didn't recommend it either.
No,
he
said it'll make it, but I don't recommend it.
He wouldn't do it himself.
I wouldn't do it, but it would probably do it.
Yeah.
He gave it a freshen up. I think he changed every fluid in it that night because we were in a bit of a rush. So,
and you guys, just a bit of context for the viewers. You're not based in Tassie, are you? You're
That's
actually
right. We're
based in South Australia,
That's right.
which is a bit of a drive, isn't it?
So it's a drive, obviously, from south of Tasmania straight up the guts onto the ferry. We've got to get to Melbourne, and then Melbourne to Adelaide.
So how many k's would we be roughly looking at there? 1,800?
Well, 800 from Melbourne to home, and then from southern Tasmania to the ferry would be 300-400 at least.
So not a short walk.
No.
And we went up the east coast as well.
That's right.
We didn't go straight, so we had
right.
that extra week to enjoy in Tasmania.
Yeah.
I was in luxury in the patrol compared to Mark.
Yeah.
Mark and the passenger Jordan. It was Tasmania weather, raining, and the windscreen wipers weren't working. So it'd be Jordan would be.
He had a hammer.
A small tickle with a hammer on the windscreen wiper motor to get it jogged up and start wiping, and Mark would have to lean out and give it a tap at some stage.
And encourage the wiper blades.
It's full of character.
Yeah. But it didn't deter you, Mark, did it?
No, it didn't.
You bought another Defender, haven't
That's
you?
right.
That's
That
behind us.
and so many Land Rover owners you speak to, they don't just have one.
No.
So there was a period there where I had two.
Yeah.
And straight away it seemed like there's a problem.
Yeah.
So I quickly got rid of the Ute. Ended up actually going back to Tasmania, funny enough. And that's how, I guess that was a bit of a stepping stone into a different Defender.
Yeah. Into Land Rover ownership.
Yep.
You pretty much fell into the deep end, I guess, with that.
Yeah.
You know, that was pretty much everything. Not that, from what you've told us, a lot of things went wrong.
Yep.
But you certainly had to have your wits about you to get back home.
Yep.
So,
Certainly.
great work with that.
Yeah.
Not only that, but it wasn't a spur of the moment. Like, you've always had a love for Defenders without owning one.
And I was always kind of just looking casually at prices and what to look for with them and stuff like that. So it wasn't there was a reason Defender was on the search list.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And four-wheel drives for you guys obviously have a bit of a different context. You know, they're not just something to play around on the weekend, because you guys actually essentially do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've travelled to some pretty remote parts of Australia, some pretty tough parts of Australia too, in Jeeps and different vehicles and all that kind of stuff. And so you've called yourselves Sidetrack?
Sidetrack Australia, yeah,
Yep.
but Sidetrack is sort of what we like doing, really.
Yeah,
Whether it's
yeah.
in conversation or whether it's in our vehicles.
Yeah.
That was how it came about, the name.
Yep.
We were actually planning one of our first big trips to Cape York
Yep.
back in 2016, and we'd go around to a mate's place that everyone that was going on the trip would go around there, and we'd plan what we need to do, what we're taking, who's taking what, all the necessities, like
Where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd get to the next morning and we'd have a hangover because there's too many beers involved,
Happens.
and we never talked about the trip whatsoever. So we were completely sidetracked, and
Yeah.
and that was one part of the name. But I guess we like taking the path less travelled.
Yeah.
Holland Track exists. Like, we haven't seen a car in a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You can get out and
Yeah.
just be remote,
Yeah.
enjoy it at your own pace.
Yeah.
So rather than take the main road,
Yep.
we take the side tracks.
Enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the logo that we designed also sort of goes well with that sort of whole-
fits in with the name
Yeah.
and the meaning and the context
That's
all
right,
behind
yeah.
it. Yeah. And I know I keep saying context, but it's just trying to bring home, why we've got these two great fellas along with us here today. And we were always going to look at doing a trip to get to the Perth four-wheel drive show, because as I've said on the channel, many of you can't come along, so why should you miss out? We might as well have an adventure along the way. And so obviously with Damon knowing these two fellas, we obviously got in touch and thought, wouldn't it be great if we could get a few more four-wheel drives along, get something a little bit more exotic like a patrol, too, just to spice things up a little bit, keep you on the edge of your seat. And these guys have driven all the way from South Australia to be here, which is 2,000 k's, 2,500
Yep.
kilometres,
Yep.
over 2 days, so that's something we wouldn't even dream of doing in the Series 3. It'd take at least 5, so good on you, and thank you very much for coming.
No, it's been great.
And we've got more trails to hit up today, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And some good obstacles too.
Yeah.
Maybe even a bit of mud.
Yeah.
Who
Let's
knows?
hope we've got enough oil to get us through.
Yeah, we'll see. We might have to exchange some.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah, great.
commodity.
Okay, well, I guess we'll fire them up and hit the road up.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So we're here once again at Sandalwood Rock, and I visited here in one of our Golden Quest episodes. But today what I thought I'd talk about is the actual name of Sandalwood Rock, which is actually really interesting. Many people, as you know, travelled up the Holland Track to go and make their fame and stake their claim in regards to finding gold. But sadly, this wasn't the case for many of them. They had to find other forms of work. And one of the ways that you could earn an income was actually by pulling sandalwood. Many would buy a camel and head off out into the Never Never and pull these very rare trees from the ground. This tree, in fact, still today can fetch a vast amount of money, and it's actually the oil within the plant itself that's really, really special. This is actually burnt in a number of temples throughout Southeast Asia. And this is where, even back in the 1890s, early 1900s, that very wood was getting shipped over all the way from here, pretty much over into another part of the world. Now, the sandalwood tree has a number of different species, and the one that we've got here today actually produces the sandalwood nut, and this is actually edible, and I've found a few on the ground.
So I think this is just interesting because we all think about gold when we think about the gold fields, but there's so much more that's actually gone on here. And it just goes to show there's a lot more to a place than just a name.
The southern section of the Holland Track definitely sees the most traffic, and with hard use over the last 30 years since the track was reopened, it has left the track littered with bomb-sized craters which need to be negotiated with a great deal of care. Aptly named Mount Holland, it provides the most elevated and the most dominant landmark on the track. Sitting at 469 metres above sea level, it sits an astonishing 169 metres higher than the surrounding landmass, giving us some fantastic views of the track ahead.
What's happened?
where it's going?
Well, this marks the end of the Holland Track for us here today, but as I've mentioned, we've still got a show to go to. But as always, the adventure never ends here at Seriously Series. So if you want to catch us on our next adventure, but more importantly, catch our good friends at Sidetrack Australia, be sure to check out their channel, click on the subscribe button, and more importantly, we hope to see you on our next big adventure.